Good morning, South Africa, and welcome to our election series, where we are taking a look at our options for the upcoming national elections. Today, we will be taking a close look at the new old kids on the block, the MK Party. According to a recent poll, if the elections were held today, the MK Party would receive 8.4% of the national vote. This marks an exceptional return for a party that is only a few months old. Securing 8.4% of the vote would make them the fourth largest party in the country. But more importantly, it would give them significant bargaining power when it comes to coalition agreements, possibly positioning them as kingmakers, most likely in coalition with the ANC or EFF. So despite being the new kids on the block, the MK Party might significantly influence the lives of every South African. So who are they? What do they stand for, and should you vote for them? Like COPE and the EFF, MK is a splinter party of the ANC, essentially a faction of the ANC, and a vehicle for the political resurgence of Jacob Zuma. So what about policy? What does the MK Party believe, and what plans does MK have for South Africa? My aim is to be as objective in my appraisal of each party as possible. So I'm only going to talk about things that the MK Party have put in their own manifesto. This is the MK Party's website, and if you go here, you can read a short version of their manifesto. It's about a page long, and it's very generic without any real substance or policy position. However, if you go down to the bottom of the page, you can download their full 24-page manifesto. This is it, what they call the People's Manifesto. And if you are at all considering voting for MK, please download it and read it in full, and consider the consequences of an MK-led government. First of all, MK claims to be a liberation movement, but there has been black majority rule in South Africa for 30 years. So who is it that MK claims South Africans need liberation from? Well, their manifesto makes it perfectly clear, with statements like, "We see continued subservience to white South Africans, with the state failing to develop the human capital and R&D capabilities of its population." And the South African state politically protects the interests of white monopoly capitalists. Now, this is a patently false statement, and if you think the word capitalist is a slur, then you really don't understand economics. This is nothing more than a racist dog whistle. Then there is another statement that echoes what Zuma previously said about all problems in South Africa starting when Van Riebeeck arrived. The manifesto claims, "Our prolonged period of national shame since 1652 is a result of inadequate scientific, industrial, financial, and military capabilities." This is a very odd statement, because it implies that there were adequate scientific, industrial, financial, and military capabilities before 1652. Which is absolutely not true. I've made a video before about this, please check it out. Regardless, this statement is another racist dog whistle that attempts to blame all current problems on things that happened 400 years ago. So according to MK, white people are clearly the problem. But what about the fact that black people have been in power for 30 years? Well, MK completely ignore this, and according to MK, the problem is not that black rule, which Zuma was a part of, has failed black people. The real problem, they claim, is the Constitution. And the manifesto includes statements that should frighten every South African, like, "Post-apartheid reconciliation cannot be facilitated by a liberal constitution that constrains the political power of the majority." This basically means that they want to be able to do anything without people having any constitutional protection against government abuse. And they echo this thought many times. Property relations cannot be transformed by a liberal constitution that privileges the property rights of land thieves over the property rights of the dispossessed masses. This is a far-reaching statement. Not only does it reduce white South Africans to nothing more than land thieves, they also make it clear that the MK will destroy private property rights. And there's more where this comes from. They state that post-apartheid reconstruction efforts cannot be pursued through neoliberal policies that privileges the market over state intervention. This is a thinly veiled statement on their intent to implement communism and do away with the free market. So now that they claim white people and the Constitution are the problem, what do they think should be done? Well, they plan to hold a referendum to scrap the 1996 Constitution and replace it with a parliamentary system with or without a codified constitution. Wow, what a statement. So what do they want? In simple terms, this is a call for a dictatorship, where the majority in parliament can do whatever they want, and people will have no recourse because there will be no constitutional protection, rights, or constitutional court to prevent abuse of power. They make this very clear when they express the goal of moving our country away from constitutional supremacy towards unfettered parliamentary supremacy. This is clearly stating that they want a dictatorship with unlimited power. And once they have all this power, what are some of the things they want to do? Well, they would like to introduce a new administrative arm of local government, the traditional government sphere, to discharge the development responsibilities in areas under their authority. So, not only will the national government be a dictatorship, but traditional leaders will also be given power over people to do as they wish. And to further erode any semblance of democracy, they want to reduce the number of provinces from the current 9 to 4 and redemarcate provincial boundaries. So this is an aim to further centralize power by combining provinces. But the real aim of this is to make it impossible for parties like the DA to keep power in the Western Cape. This is nothing more than a power grab. And once they have destroyed freedom and democracy in South Africa, they will destroy the economy by expropriating all land without compensation and transferring ownership to the people under the state and traditional leadership custodianship. So if you're black and you think this means you will get land, think again. Nobody will own land. The state will own all the land, and we will all go from being citizens to being subjects of an all-powerful king, just like in medieval times. And make no mistake, they are not talking about farmland. They make it clear, all land. In other words, you will no longer own your farm, your house, or your business property. And they plan to establish guidelines for the state to lease land to citizens. They should say subjects, but nonetheless, for various purposes and based on a comprehensive national development plan. So basically they say that the state will decide who can use land, who can live where, and they will be able to take anything they want from anyone. To make it clear for people who don't understand, this will destroy the country overnight. Firstly, food security will disappear because there will be no commercial farms. Secondly, the economy will collapse. If you tell people they no longer own their property, they will stop paying their bonds, meaning the banks will collapse and the entire economy will crumble. But delusionally, the MK believe that if they do this, the economy will grow by 8 to 10% a year. This is laughably stupid. The economy will decline rapidly. People with money will leave. The tax base will shrink. Investment will disappear. Companies will close. Unemployment will skyrocket. Food prices will go through the roof. The country will become socially unstable and ultimately collapse into a state of anarchy. We know this because we have seen it countless times with other Marxist countries that have tried to do the exact same thing. But nonetheless, they also want to nationalize strategic mining firms and regulate private capital participation in resource exploitation. Well, once you nationalize the mines, you don't have to worry about regulating capital participation because there won't be any capital investment coming into the country. Anyone who understands anything about economics knows that you cannot take the incentive to do business in a country away and still expect people to invest there. Nonetheless, they want to also nationalize the South African Reserve Bank, major banks, and insurance companies to reduce the dominance of private finance over our economy. What a stupid statement. This makes it clear that MK want a totalitarian state where the government controls everything. This has never worked in any country it has ever been tried, and only results in oppression. Nationalizing the financial sector will destroy the economy, chase away investment, and open the sector up to the industrial-scale looting that we have seen for the last 30 years in state-owned enterprises. Remember VBS Bank? Well, imagine that, but with every bank and insurance company in the country. How long do you think it will take for politicians to steal every cent? And then nonsensically, after they have already nationalized all the banks, they also want to establish a network of state-owned banks. But why do you need state-owned banks if you've already nationalized the banks and they are now all state-owned? Just stupid. And if taking money from the banks is not enough, they also want to review Regulation 28 so that South African savings are used to finance national development. This just means that they want to be able to take your money to do whatever they want with it. And it's not only your money they are after, it's also your free will. They plan to reintroduce apartheid-era conscription, ensuring that every young person reaching the age of 18 serves a year of military service to cultivate discipline and patriotism amongst our youth. But when the apartheid regime did this, they called it racism. Now they want to do the exact same thing and call it patriotism. So what about health? When it comes to health, they want to implement the National Health Insurance Scheme, the NHI. I've already made a video explaining why we cannot do this now. Please watch that video if you think the NHI is the answer to healthcare in South Africa. At the same time, they want to make traditional healers part of mainstream health system. So the NHI will be paying for people to go to traditional healers instead of doctors. And then they want to make it mandatory to undergo a health screening each year. Now, it's not a bad idea to go for a checkup once a year, but the government has no business mandating anything when it comes to people's private health. This is massive government overreach. What about the existing state-owned enterprises? Well, they want to bring SAA back to 100% state ownership. Well, this has happened anyway because of the collapse of the deal, but it worked so well in the past when Zuma put his girlfriend in charge. They also plan to stop the unbundling of Eskom and repel all private agreements with independent power producers. So under the MK, you can expect a lot more corruption at Eskom and a lot more load shedding. And not surprising at all, they want to deliberately increase investment in new military equipment and increase the maintenance budget of existing equipment. This is not surprising at all, given that it was the arms deal that gave Jacob Zuma a taste for just how lucrative government corruption can be. And what about crime? You would think the focus would be on the 80 people being murdered in the country each day. But no, they want to accelerate the prosecution of all pending cases that have long been overdue since the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. While there are apartheid-era crimes that should be prosecuted, that should not be the focus of the state, not when crime is currently out of hand. We all know that apartheid was an evil system. So what does it say about the current system when more black people are murdered in this country each year by other black people than the apartheid regime killed collectively in 40 years? The truth of the matter is white people are not the enemy of black people, and focusing on revenge is not going to change anything. And then frighteningly, the MK want to hold a referendum on the death penalty. Just imagine a country with no constitutional protection that has a death penalty. This sounds like nothing more than a sure way for a totalitarian state to be able to eliminate anyone they want for whatever reason they want, and there will be no legal protection or recourse against it. And then laughably, there are statements like strengthen crime intelligence and clean out operatives that have links to criminal syndicates. This is funny because it was under Zuma that crime intelligence was turned into a personal army for the former president. And they also claim to want to strengthen the fight against corruption. Yes, Jacob Zuma, the man who sold the country to his buddies, wants us to believe that he is going to fight corruption. Give me a break. To all South Africans, I urge you to reconsider if you plan on voting for the MK Party. This manifesto is a blueprint on how to destroy a nation. MK is not the solution to the suffering that millions of people are experiencing in the country right now. This is a racist, hate-filled, power-hungry, corrupt organization that wants unlimited power and unrestricted access to the country's assets. The MK Party will destroy the nation, and if you vote for them, you are complicit in that destruction.